Alrighty, good evening. Welcome back to Borough Hall. It is June 8th, 2021. This is the ACT Committee meeting, 5:30 p.m. I'm Nick Allen, the chair, and I'm joined by Michael Stefano and Lisa Dorsey. Department heads are Mike Brome and Bill Mann. And I think we're good to call this meeting to order. Are there any comments, suggestions, or petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Norley.
Thank you. Jordan Norley. Mike, Lisa. Wanted to see if there's a possibility to have hybrid meetings. I think a lot of folks that were engaged previously in committee meetings because of COVID, people that can't get here, handicap, whatever it might be, traveling, whether there's really any function or any possibility where there can be full participation remotely as well in person. So, I know people can log on, I believe, right? And be live right now. Is that happening?
Not yet, but
Not yet.
we're
Okay.
working on it. Yeah,
Okay.
soon. Yeah.
And for there to be that hybrid full capacity, both sides, and just see where we are on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's absolutely the goal, 100% what we want to do. I think we're dry running that right now, and we were yesterday, just trying to iron out some of the tech kinks, and then we got to build some policies around that. How do we manage comments, all that kind of stuff. But to my understanding, the goal is to make it so you can participate 100% from home. We can hear you over our speakers. So it sounds like we're working on something that's kind of sophisticated. So we'll get there. I think it's a TBD right now.
To Jordan's point, he brings up a good question. I haven't heard council say this is 100% the goal to do anything at this point. I think you need to figure out what you want this to look like in the future. First time I've heard, say, virtually everybody can communicate the same as people in the room. That creates more challenges. We can surely broadcast or YouTube or actual meetings that are live with participation here. That I know we can do. That next step is create some other challenges, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I should speak more clearly. That's my goal specifically, is to get to that point eventually. But I think, we're making a big step tonight. Having things on YouTube, I think will be more accessible. But then the live element, I'm sure we can at least get that started with like comment abilities and then take it from there.
Are we switching to a different? Are we switching to Teams? Is that right, Bill? Or is that just for like management?
Yes, we're switching to Teams internally. We use Skype for Business, Insight for Business. We're switching to Teams. The public facing would still be WebEx in whatever way we do it, but Teams is internal. But we are switching to that next month.
Okay, so I think you're asking, like, I don't know if we're all discussing this now, but I think having some kind of a hybrid and allowing people at home to participate would be great. I don't know if it through like opening up the mics, I think I could just see the fiasco of that, people chiming in the middle of like a live meeting, but allowing the chat option where they can type in questions and comments and allowing us to address those, I think would be great. And then seeing it live is also a great idea.
They could also just raise their hand and then they can be selectively unmuted, whatever. But it sounds like administration needs some direction ultimately in order to, I don't know if it needs to be voted on or whatever, but it sounds like there needs to be some firm direction so that they know what they're solving for. But there's definitely ways to do it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we'll work on that this month for sure.
I do have one comment about that. The technology is not necessarily the problem, it's how to manage it. So when you start talking about responding to chat boxes and responding to people virtually and in-house, there's a policy and a personnel issue, how you're going to fairly do that. The broadcasting live is not an issue. You can broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, on our homepage. for these things, and you can have people watch. That's easy. Once you start, the more interaction, the more policy that's necessary, and the more thought with personnel and how you're managing these things fairly, fairly for everyone. So take some thought.
Oh, okay. I thought I was pretty loud anyway, but um, my just question would be then about the chat, because is that part then of the record or does that go away?
That would be
Well,
part of the discussion.
That's another decision council would have to make, not the IT guy. My whole concern during all the virtual meetings was all the chatting that was going on and so forth and so on. I, you know, I mean, during a regular council meeting, people are all in here discussing things back and forth. There's quiet in the room, council's answering questions, there's presentations being made. Personally, I think the chat should be used for, if we have these virtual meetings, continue them, people should be able to ask a question, or like George said, you raise a hand, ask a question. You don't go on a, diatribe of discussing, this person's, I mean, there was I saw over the past year, some nasty stuff on the chat, and really inappropriate stuff. So it should be limited to questions, and then the chair, whoever's running a meeting, that's another task they're going to have to do, to pay attention to the chat to answer questions.
That would be my question, is to make sure that it is being followed and someone's paying attention to it, because there were times when questions were raised and they were missed. And, I know that there's tons of stuff going on, so I kind of understand that. But if we're going to do this, then the people online should get as much attention as the people sitting in the room. But I loved watching online. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
It's hard to come to every meeting, so it's a great way to be participating in the process, but not be, I'm retired, I can be here at 5:30, but a lot of people can't. So thank you.
Sounds a lot like my classroom this year. So speaking for my kids, at least, I didn't want them talking to each other too much. So I just made it, you can message me, and that's it. So that might be something that we consider as well, but I appreciate the input. Are there any other comments, suggestions, or petitions by residents in attendance regarding items? Alrighty, so I think we're good to move on to item number 3, which is to consider approving Ecovanta electronic waste contract renewal.
Good evening, everyone. Will Williams, Sustainability Director. We have an attachment for you. It's a 2-page extension, 1-year contract renewal for electronic waste pickup and recycling with Ecovanta, covering calendar year 2021. Since 2010, Act 108 has mandated certain types of electronics be recycled in Pennsylvania. We have a program to do so. We suspended it when COVID hit last year and our facilities shut down. So now we're back opened up. We need a new contract to continue. If you'll, Billy, can you open that attachment? So page 4 of the attachment shows, so the first 2 pages of this are the contract extension. The second 2 pages are the original contract, which we're extending. Going down, page 4. There's a breakout here, covered devices, non-covered devices. Covered devices are free. They'll be picked up for free by this vendor. The charge of getting rid of that is baked into the price of those. We buy them. So our only costs here are the non-covered devices. Those tend to be smaller things like cell phones, radios, DVD players, things like that. Originally, this contract was 25 cents a pound to get rid of. Now this extension says that would be 30 cents per pound, but we charge $5 per drop-off if there's an item that's not covered, regardless of the weight. So in 2019, our last normal year, we paid them $321 for this service. And I don't have the exact revenue, but I'm sure it covered that cost.
Great, thanks. I mean, I don't have any issues with it. It's so nice to be able to just look at you. That's so nice. It's going to take a while to get used to, but it's definitely a step up. Any public comment about that? All righty, moving on swiftly to number 4, which is to discuss changing the home rule charter on holding dual elected positions. All right, so we had a couple attachments for this one, but I know that last month we talked a little bit about sending each other some research, making sure we're all on the same page with this, and I reached out to some members of the community as well. And the big issue here, obviously, is there's nothing preventing someone from running a full term on council and, for example, a full term on school board simultaneously. So I definitely am interested in pursuing some of these changes as well. But as I've looked into this issue, it's a little more complicated than I realized. If you've read the part in the home rule charter for replacement, it took me a long time to comprehend, but I think I got there. So I just wanted to, I guess I can invite you up. Is there anything new you'd like to report today? Are there any comments?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
I know we asked for some, and did Ms. Rossica, did she send information? And it was, I feel like her examples were like not close to our demographics and our size. Like it was New York City, maybe Philadelphia, and the mayor of Philadelphia is a much different role and responsibility than the mayor of Westchester. Not that we're not important, but that's a massive city. So I think didn't sway me to kind of change my stance. I'm not opposed to this. I just think that I don't know I feel like the reasoning is we're not being as honest as we want to about the reasoning why we really want to do this. So I don't see it really being necessary that we're to do it, but I haven't gotten anything else to sway me any further. So that's my comments.
I tend to agree with Mr. Stefano. I did see Beth Rosica's information. Again, it wasn't overwhelmingly one way to sway. I just think this needs a little bit more due diligence before we would make a change like that.
And I was able to talk to Jim Salvis about this a little bit. If you'd like to come on up, Jim really understands the charter in this area quite well. And
Can I ask a question before can I just a clarifying question? Do we get an answer? I feel like we did, but I don't remember about if this was something that had to go to referendum or not. Did we get that answer? And if we did, I forgot. I missed it.
Yeah, Kristen Camp looked at the issue. Ultimately, council would have to agree to send this to election board. It would be a ballot question put on there's all kind of timeframes of it. But ultimately, our council will have to say yes, at least a majority, get it there. Then the final vote are the citizens of the borough to say yes or no.
Hold it down while I'm talking? Oh, okay. All right. First time with the new system. Okay, so according to the state code and to our home rule charter, you actually have the authority to put a measure on the ballot through the passage of an ordinance. So you would go through your normal process of passing an ordinance, and it would then go on the ballot. So that would be potentially possible for you to get a measure on this November's ballot. Now, a citizen initiative would require 5% of I believe it's the last vote in the borough for governor. So you go back to the last gubernatorial election, take 5% of that. You would need that many signatures to put it on the primary ballot. So you're too late for that already, because that a citizen initiative would require a two-step process, putting the measure up to get it voted by the citizens to make it a referendum for a regular general election. So, but you could do it as council, I believe, and solicitor can back me up on this, but according to the state code and to our own home rule charter, you can actually pass an ordinance. Now I would like to speak to the particulars of this. This is one of those, closing the barn door kind of thing. We've had the situation twice in 4 years now, where we've had a mayor actually extend their term after having been elected to state legislature. Carolyn Committa in 2017 and Diane Herron this time. And part of that, despite protestations to the contrary, I think we can all agree, was because of some other odd situations that we have written into our home rule charter. Our home rule charter calls for a special election for any post that is open more than 90 days before the next election. Well, what that would have meant in terms of these last two mayoral elections would have been if the mayor had resigned or had been removed from office upon taking the oath of office at the Capitol, they would have been out of office in January. Council would then have to, within 30 days, appoint an interim mayor to serve only until the next election, which would be the primary election. So you'd actually appoint a mayor for 4 months. Then there would be a special election, which would be open to anybody of any party to sign up. The bar for getting on that ballot, very low. I think it's like 25 signatures or something like that you have to get on the ballot. So the potential could be that you'd have like a dozen people. I don't know how many people showed up here to interview for the interim mayor position. Consider every one of those being on the ballot for the special election. At the same time, parallel to that, you'd have the primary election. So on that same day, on the same ballot, mayor would appear twice. Some of those names would appear on the Democratic ballot, some of them appear on the Republican ballot, some of them would be independents who would appear only on the special election ballot. Some of them would be twice on the same ballot because they're running for special and for primary. So there's the rub. You've got a system that really is kind of fudgy because of the special election rule. I believe that you also have the authority to create, along with addressing this issue of someone holding two offices, to address the issue of the timing of special elections. So I would recommend, I'm not opposed to either one of these things. I just think you should be careful in not creating a worse situation than we have right now, where if you force somebody off, then we would go into this kind of messy process. Now, some people say that's all well and good, that, the more voters, the better. But in actuality, what you wind up with is potentially an interim mayor who is elected by 15 or 20% of the electorate because there'd be so many people on the special election ballot. Special elections are not the most democratic things around. They happen suddenly. Nobody has enough information. Nobody can afford to put out much of a campaign. The guy with the only deep pockets is probably going to be the one who wins and could win with a very small plurality of the vote. So I just caution you in terms of trying to avoid that process going forward. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. When we look at something like this, we should look at not just what the situation was, but what we're creating going forward. And I just recommend that and I think maybe you could, and I don't know, I haven't read deeply enough into this, but I do think you're within your rights to extend that appointment process, that you could, because we are home rule charter, we can do an awful lot by amending that home rule charter. So you can make that term what you want. You can make it a 1 year. So you can say, if they have resigned within 1 year of the end of the term, then Borough Council would appoint an interim to fill that position, whether it's a Borough Council position or the mayor or whatever. So I do think that you should look at both of those issues. You do have a little bit of time. I think you have, something like 90 days before the general election to get Oh, 120, so we're getting close then. By ordinance. Yeah, it could be on the primary next year. Yeah, it's one of these things we've had this situation come up twice, but it's kind of like lightning struck twice because it's that rare. I mean, that we've not had the situation. It's just like when you're addressing something like this, let's make sure that we don't create a more difficult situation going forward. By the way, I was chair of the Democratic Committee, as you know, so I was dealing with Election Day. And one of the problems we had was just the number of candidates. We had the judicial candidates, we had state candidates, we had common pleas district justice, and we had 3 mayoral candidates, each of which had all of their representatives at every poll. The voters were calling into voter services. I was fielding calls all day long complaining about the candidates and their representatives getting in everybody's way. Now imagine if you sent another 10 candidates out there. Just don't do that, please. All right, thank you.
Great, thanks, Jim. I think that's really basically what I wanted to bring up. I thought that was really well put. And the idea is too, with the system we have now, we could end up with 4 different mayors in 1 calendar year, and that's how it is now. So I definitely think it's worth looking into this, and I think it's worth getting something on a ballot eventually. My sense of urgency is not extremely quick on this because I'd like to get it right. But I mean, I definitely think we should not recommend this this draft of the changes to full council because it's not going to solve the problems that we just mentioned at all. But I definitely think that's something we need to look into as we move forward in the next couple of months, just to make sure we do get this right and to make sure that we do it in a way that helps the residents.
Yeah, I agree. I think, hearing what Jim said, a lot of that makes sense to me. And if we were going to change and not allow, any elected official to hold any other elected position, that we do also look at that and fix that process, because that could be really messy and probably not in the best interest of the borough or their constituents. So.
I definitely think this is a totally different debate than the one we're scheduled to have right now.
Yeah.
This is not a 2 at once debate, and I think we need to maybe one thing gets by and the other doesn't, but I think we should have both these debates moving forward. But the way this is presented, I think will do a little bit more harm than good. Yes, Mayor Norley?
Thanks. And I would just suggest, if we're going to look at changing the home rule charter, is there's a lot of other issues with the home rule charter, and it's sort of a big process to go through. So it might be worth doing a total review of the home rule charter if we're going to look to go to the voters on a ballot question. And this could be one of them, but I think there's other opportunities as well.
Great, thank you. Are there any other public comments on this item? All righty, great. So we're good to move on now to item number 5, which is to consider storing borough council meetings on the Westchester Borough YouTube channel. Is anyone here for this one? It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, Kyle, if you want to come on up.
Yep, I know technology. So as many of you will know, I started recording and live streaming borough council meetings back in 2018. I faced a lot of opposition from certain members of government. And I'm glad to see that now we're taking the approach of doing this, but I want to just talk for a second about, like, what is the purpose of this, right? Like, the purpose, I know when I came in, I know I came a little late, sorry, that you were talking about, like, the engagement, the back and forth, right? And that is an important component of it. But I think that in tech, we have this idea called a minimum viable product, right? Like, just get it out and see if it works. And I think streaming it, like, you can figure out the interactivity as soon as possible. You can figure out the interactivity after you get it out there. But my concern in seeing this as it is we definitely want to store it on YouTube, right? I definitely think streaming it to YouTube is a fantastic idea. I know I've seen you on Facebook. I know you can stream it because I saw you doing it. So I know you have the technology, right? I don't see why we're limiting ourselves, right? There's a free software called OBS Studio. It's what I use for my company. We could stream our stuff on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, right? Like all at the same time for no extra money, right? It's like for the same price of whatever you're using, it's the same thing. Or Restream is the other component of it. It's OBS Studio and Restream. And I definitely think that we need to, instead of just putting YouTube in there, right? You need to be broader about it, because one of the problems we have right now when we have ordinances passed is, right, we just put it in the newspaper. This is something I brought up. We don't have any digital requirements. So if the only requirement is to put it on YouTube, and through some weird thing, a new social media platform comes up and overtakes YouTube as the number one, we're still posting our stuff on YouTube. So the only real problem I have with this is word it in a way that doesn't limit it to specific social media channels, and maybe use terms like the most popular, or something that has the most users, or the platform that we have the most followers on. Because YouTube's great and it'll hopefully be great forever, but we don't know if it will be. And I think we need to think, if we do this, right, this is the order of business moving forward, hopefully forever. So we need to think about, in 50 years, what will this look like? But the other thing I just want to say is that I would like to see these, as well as being put on YouTube, have links on the website, because right now we can't link to older, like I can't find meetings from 2020. I know those recordings exist, but they're not there. So in addition to hosting the current ones, I would like to see you guys backdate all of the meetings you have, so that people can get a full look at what this was. Plus, it'll also be good historical records for, 50 years from now, people seeing how we conducted our meetings. So as I told you, Nick, I'm happy to sit down and talk with you on how to do this. We actually have a live stream company here in Westchester. It isn't me, it's the Stream Geeks. They're really, really smart, and I encourage you to reach out to them. But yeah, I just want to see this a little broader than just like say YouTube, because I think we could be so much bigger than that. And it probably will require to be bigger if we wanted the interactivity that we were looking for.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kyle. I totally agree with you. I'll start there. And what I would recommend is we can wrap that discussion in with our hybrid discussion, and try to get all of it right all at once. And then for now, we can at least get things up and rolling on YouTube. And I've spent a lot of time looking for meetings on the website as well. So I'm with you on that one.
One last question. So we're going to be recording the Borough Council meetings, right? Are we
Yeah.
going to be putting the recordings for all of these other meetings? Like, are we going to be recording every public meeting?
Yeah, so, and this honestly was exactly what I was hoping we would do, is we're gonna have a playlist for each committee, and then I'd imagine other meetings would go into special meetings. So like our SEPTA meeting last night, I would imagine would go in a special meeting category.
That looks beautiful. I will subscribe right now.
Awesome, thanks. Are there any council issues with YouTube?
I think it's fine. I think it makes sense. Does this council need to like vote on this? Can we just kind of say, hey, Bill, do this? I mean, do we need to?
I have a comment. I would have to use caution with the boards and commissions. We are not set up to record all the boards and commissions meetings right now. This is the only room that has the ability to do this. And the YouTube is a place to store the meetings. Streaming them is another discussion of where you want to and so forth. But the idea, and I'll go back and put more in there, now that I just wanted to share this before I did it. All of last month is here. There's file limitation here. So
I would say stream it in any way that's easiest for you to do it. If you're using Cisco WebEx and it streams already through that, why change that? I don't know.
with YouTube and Facebook simultaneously.
And I would also like to see in the ordinance or whatever you do that these are kept on YouTube forever. That there is no reason to ever take one of these down. I have heard of other places that don't do that, and I just think from a transparency issue, I think it's really important that whatever we agree to, we post it, it's there forever.
I'm not sure that's a transparency issue. If something happened 10 years ago and we're taking it down doesn't mean we're wiping it from history. It happened 10 years ago. I don't know. I just think,
My hesitation on that is that by opening up that door, it makes that a decision. Do you know what I mean? And when YouTube costs $0 to host, I can't think of any reason you would want to remove. It's not like paper that we need to shred, right? Every year we shred the documents because it takes up space downstairs. We don't have to worry about that with this. So I would like to see like forever on there.
Okay. Ms. Dorsey?
Is there opposition to doing the live streaming? I haven't heard any, but is there opposition to doing it? Other than like technical limitations that we might have right now?
I mean, I would jump in and say, it sounds like technology is not the issue. It's policy, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
So,
Got it. Yeah, with boards and
Not
commissions.
stuff.
Yeah.
And Councilman Dorsey, I will let you know, I plan on continuing live streaming the Borough Council voting sessions and work sessions. So on the channel we were doing it before. So
And
hey, I think you should still do it. It's your responsibility to do it. I, as a third-party interested resident, am taking the initiative. But I told you in that meeting years ago, I wouldn't charge you.
all righty. And just to make a further point of clarification, I think this is more about what we're doing with videos when it's over. And so this doesn't pertain to our streaming this at all. So this is just, we're going to store it in a place that's a little easier to navigate. And I guess we don't have to worry about like hosting issues with that as well, which is definitely a perk. So does that sound like a 3-0?
Does, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. All righty, so we're good for item number 6, which is to consider authorizing the borough manager to execute a clean energy power purchase agreement.
Good evening again. Want to be cognizant of the time. We're already over our scheduled meeting time, and this is a little complex, but hopefully I can give you enough information to pass this along to Borough Council next week. So quick background. If you recall, about 3 weeks before lockdown last year, we received an energy transition plan for the borough and the 5 surrounding townships. One of the most feasible and impactful strategies in there is joint procurement of clean energy. It's an opportunity for us to be leaders in the community on this issue. And also, pretty sure what I'm pitching tonight is, this is done by big cities. This is done by Facebook, Google, Amazon. As far as we know, no cohort of small local governments have banded together and tried to do this. So we're in uncharted territory. All right, so very quickly, today how we buy energy. Of course, we get our PICO bill, and roughly half of the costs on that PICO bill we contract with a third party. That's our energy supply costs. Right now, all the participating municipalities work with a company called Constellation Energy. They are the Coca-Cola of the energy world. They're the biggest, they're the most sophisticated, and it's not surprising we all work with them. We sign these contracts, they're 2 or 3 years. It's a fixed price. The transaction happens on the PICO bill. The downside is we don't know where our energy comes from, but we know it comes from the grid, which is not a clean energy resource. And we know it's coming from existing power plants. So breakdown, so again, that energy supply cost is just one piece of the energy bill. But within that energy supply is actually about a dozen items. I've been in energy procurement. I've done this for over 10 years. I've bought millions of dollars of energy per year in a previous role. Honestly, can't really tell you what most of those items are. The most important one is right up top, energy costs. That's safe to say that's about 90 or 95% of your energy supply costs. So there's something called a sleeved power purchase agreement. A lot of similarities. We stick with our 2 to 3 year supply contracts. We still have a fixed price. That transaction still occurs on our PICO bill. But the upside is it's a clean energy resource, it's a known location, and most importantly, it's a new build. Us buying clean energy for the first time should create new clean energy. Next slide, Billy. So what is the power purchase agreement? It's an underlying agreement, typically 15 years. And the power purchase agreement dictates what that energy cost is and where it comes from. So it's not replacing your supply contract. It's really in addition to your supply contract and clarifying, again, that top line item, that top component under energy supply, it's clarifying what that is, where it comes from, and how much we're paying for it for a longer term. So the request here is that Borough Council ultimately authorize the borough manager to execute a power purchase agreement and an initial 3-year supply contract, which would commence in 2024. We would do this in conjunction with the other municipalities. And our process here is, this is the dry run. I'm doing this on friendly territory, but assuming Borough Council gives us his approval, I'll be going around to the other 5 municipalities and asking their elected officials that they also grant the municipal managers authority to execute this power purchase agreement. Reason for that is, if we get all those approvals, then we go back to Constellation and 1 or 2 of their competitors and ask them, we're not going to disclose our price, but we're going to say, hey, we want to do a power purchase agreement. Here's our electrical load. You have a price, you need to beat it. We have approval for up to 15 years. Shorter is always better, but if need be, we can go out 15 years. Aggregator goes out, they shop those deals on our behalf. They come to us with an opportunity. We have 24 hours to have that opportunity signed by every municipality and the developer of the renewable energy project. So clearly we can't do that at the next Borough Council meeting, which is why we want to set a price ceiling by Borough Council and a term contract. Again, we'll get all of those approvals, hopefully, and then we'll see what the lowest number is, and that's what we have to run with and shop with. The idea here is hopefully we can get this done before the end of the year. If not, we'll circle back early next year and ask, probably be some new faces on Borough Council. We'll ask for that approval again so that this council isn't locking in future councils to their decision making. So actually, Billy, go back a slide. So I just want to stop there and see if there are any questions, comments, concerns, or any thoughts on the approach.
Why is it a single day turnaround? Why?
So these aggregators, they're really middlemen. They're trying to connect us as an electric consumer with the company developing the project. They're doing that on behalf of dozens, maybe even hundreds of clients at the same time. The developer wants that agreement signed as quickly as possible, and this agreement provides the commitment they need to secure financing to actually build this project and get it done. So the short answer is a lot of people are vying for the same product, and developer will go to, developers are really proposing the prices. It's up to aggregator to sell it as quickly as possible.
What happens if the other municipalities do not want to participate?
Then we're back to square one. DVRPC is trying to coordinate this on a much larger scale, but I think they're a few months, if not a year, behind us in the process.
So all the other municipalities that you're starting with us because we're the catalyst for this, correct? So you're starting with us and you're going to go to everybody else. Do you have any inkling whether they would be? Do you have any kind of idea that they already made? I mean, we already entered into some kind of agreement with them anyway, right? Like the grouping with them.
Yeah, we collectively paid for the energy transition plan, and we've collectively set aside a couple $1,000s for this year to pursue things like this.
Let me jump in real quick, Will. To answer your question, Mike, Will's done a hell of a job over the last year and a half, 2 years with this project. He's taken it by the bull by the horns, and has been the lead person with all the other municipalities, their staffs, specifically their supervisors, and all the other municipalities, I think except one, 100% on board municipality who's wishy-washy. We can do that without that one municipality. You know, if 3 of the 5 say no, forget about it, then like Will said, we're back to square one.
There's really 3 of us that represent about 90% of the energy use. If one of the 3 says no, then we're truly back to square one. One of the smaller ones says no, we can still proceed.
Great. I don't have any questions. Sounds like a nightmare, but it sounds like it's well managed. So that's good news.
Yeah, if I may, one more minute. So I think it's best if we want to advance this to council, I think we should fill in the blank for that price. We can obviously discuss it next week, but Billy, if you go to the next slide, here are all the municipalities, what they've paid for energy, what they're paying currently, what they paid for the last few years. I'm happy to say the borough is paying less than everyone. Especially this year, we have a very lucrative contract. I mentioned this would start in 2024. At that time, we have been quoted a cost of $48 per megawatt hour. Billy, go to the next slide. So a couple of proposals here. I'm sorry that we were quoted $47 a megawatt hour. So a couple of proposals here to fill in that blank. $47 would be cost neutral to what we expect to pay. 49 would be roughly a 5% premium and add about $11,000 per year to our energy costs. Last year, just as a frame of reference, we paid $51 a megawatt hour. So that's the last suggestion here, basically going back to what we paid last year. That would be about a 10% premium versus what we expect to pay in 2024 and would be an added cost of about $20,000. To put that in perspective, we spend over $500,000 a year on energy, and our annual budget is about $40 million. I don't know if you want to fill in that blank with any of those numbers or just throw it to Borough Council.
That might be a good council-wide decision, I would think. Sure. Thinking like, are they going to listen to the live stream? They're going to be on YouTube watching us talk about this? I mean, I'm always inclined to go for 47. If they say no, like what's the turnaround time for us to come with a counteroffer? And if they're not able to, like, that's my real question is like, how long is it going to take for us to go back at and say, okay, we'll try 49?
At that point, it would probably be, early next year. We would want to get that approval from 2022 Borough Council. And that would be a good time to revisit the price as well.
It's easier for you all to actually pick a number a little higher. It's going to be undisclosed to, Constellation or whoever else would bid on this thing. Then the managers will be negotiating a price. But you should have a cap, not a bare minimum.
So we're authorizing a cap, not necessarily what you would go in originally. Okay, gotcha. Well, in that case, I trust you to get us as low as possible. But yeah, I'd be okay going. I mean, I think going up to 51 is fine by me.
Yeah, we've seen prices 42, 46. So, I think keeping it cost neutral, this might be an opportunity to do something first in the nation and cut our electric bill, which would be the ideal scenario.
Right. Yes. I mean, so obviously that would be great. I hope we can do that. But I think it's worth paying a little bit more for something that's a lot better. Personally, I don't know. Any comments on that?
I would approve this.
Sounds good to me.
So are we good to recommend this to council with that? I guess we can fill in the 51, I suppose. Great. We can call that a 3-0 recommendation. I guess I apologize. Are there any public comments around that? Okay, great. Thanks. Sounds fun. Item number 7 is to consider Westchester Downtown Foundation's permit for their annual Up on the Roof event at the Chestnut Street Garage on September 25th, 2021. Is it the same as before? All right, I mean, I'm great with that.
Yeah. I was hoping they would do it. I didn't know if they were going to do it. It looks like they're pushing it to the fall, which is fine. Yeah, that'd be great.
Any issues?
No issues.
Public comment? It'll be fun. Hope everyone comes. Great, so we can call that a 3-0, and then I didn't have any issues with the minutes, number 8 issues. And then is this, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, other business, go ahead, Kyle.
Kyle Hudson, 524 West Marshall Street. There's one other thing I just forgot to mention. I really did want to mention to you guys. We've actually been in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act with our recordings. If we're generating recordings, we need to have them accessible to people who are hard of hearing. So I would look into a transcription service like Otter and transcribe these recordings and post them on the website, just so that people who are disabled can still access these recordings.
Okay, thank you. Any other business tonight? Alrighty, I didn't get to speed run this one, but maybe when we're on Twitch, I can do that. So we'll adjourn at 6:17. Thanks.